Welcome, everybody. We are once again Pages Promotions sharing with you the wonderment of Mark Bello tonight. Mark, wave and say hi to everybody.
Hello,
That's
everybody.
Mark. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Mark Bello, who has written some astounding legal thrillers. They're really super fun. And tonight we're celebrating the launch of his sixth book, which is Supreme Betrayal. We'll be talking about that a lot. Mark's going to do a reading and we're going to give away some books. We'll take some questions and answers. So feel free to put those in the chat if you're in the room live with us. I would love to take your questions and pose them to Mark. And we'll have a really great conversation tonight. Just to tell you a little bit about us, um, we are Pages Promotions. We support indie authors in their creative journey from concept to publication and promotion with equitable mentoring, professional services, and enthusiastic advocacy for writers of every age, stage, and genre. Essentially, I'm madly in love with indie authors, and I do everything in my power to promote them, support them, and help everybody in the world get to know them better. And tonight, we're going to have a great time learning about Mark's new book, Supreme Betrayal. Mark has got some great um, uh, reviews for this book already. There's two of them on your screen. This book, by the way, just officially launched yesterday on Amazon. So if you want a copy for your very own, you can jump on Amazon and go get it. If you want a signed copy from Mark, you can go to his website, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit, how you can find him. But Supreme Betrayal is the sixth book in the Zachary Blake legal thriller series. We're really excited. Mark, thank you so much for being with us tonight. I am super thrilled to share this really amazing occasion with you. Six books is a lot of books.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you doing this.
Of course. What are friends for?
Diana mentioned that she's a supporter of indie authors. For those of you who are indie authors in the room, I highly recommend her services. Check out her website and give her a try. She's wonderful.
Thank you so much. You're very kind. Let's talk about you. You are the man of the hour. Please start out. Just give us a little bit about your background, who you are, where you came from, and what got you started writing this amazing thriller series.
Well, I'm an attorney. I've practiced law for over 40 years, 45 years to be exact. Um, in the 1980s, I handled a case that involved a priest who molested two boys. And when the case was over and we were successful and we beat a very difficult opponent, um, the church dodged and weaved at every turn, lied, hid witnesses, covered up documents, sealed files. They made it very difficult for us to succeed. The case was probably the case of my life. We were successful, and I always promised myself when I got older, I'd write a book about it,
Mm.
and I did. That book was Betrayal of Faith, and it was my first book, and uh, basically, uh, the book was about an experience that I personally had. I thought I was going to be a one and done author. It was a bucket list item. Um, and what happened was, for lack of a better way to say it, I caught a writer's bug, if you will.
Yeah, right.
The 2016 election came along, had a profound effect on me as well. And I wrote a book about a fictional account of the 2016 election
Okay.
called Betrayal of Justice. So once those two books were what's the word in the can
Released.
in the can,
Released. Once they were released, yeah.
um, I kind of knew I could do it, and started writing almost a book a year. So that's where I'm at.
That's awesome. Um, so you've got 6 books out now. Supreme Betrayal is the sixth.
Correct.
And can you give us just a little synopsis of this book? I mean, for those of us who are familiar with your work, we know that this is about a Supreme Court case, judge, justice. Can you tell us a little bit more about the synopsis without giving too much of it away?
Well, it isn't about a Supreme Court case. It's about a Supreme Court nomination and the fight uh, for and over the nomination.
Okay.
It's based loosely on the Brett Kavanaugh hearings. Um, it was inspired at least by the hearings. Personally, between Kavanaugh and Christine Ford, I tended to believe Christine Ford because I felt she had no motive or reason to lie.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, the idea of a sexual predator on the Supreme Court um, did not sit well with me,
Sure, as it
and
wouldn't with many of us.
um, I decided to uh, use that as a topic for a novel. Now, Kavanaugh, as we all know, was not found guilty of anything. The fictional character in my book is a terrible guy and an evil narcissist, somebody who would do anything to secure a seat on the Supreme Court. We can't say that about Brett Kavanaugh. We just don't know. So I don't want, uh, while the book was inspired by the Kavanaugh hearings, it is not about the Kavanaugh hearings.
Right, right.
But
And that's an important distinction to make because all of your books are incredibly topical and they are very ripped from the headlines, as you might want to phrase it. But these are absolutely fictional accounts. So less that anybody in the reader world think that these are um, true crime kinds of novels. They're not. They're absolutely fiction novels.
that is correct.
Okay, awesome. Um, how would you like to do a little reading for us, and then we'll get back to some Q&A from the audience? How's that sound?
I can do that.
That would be great. You're going
Let,
to read a
let-
little bit from Supreme Betrayal, correct?
I want to set it up a little bit, if you don't
Oh,
mind.
yeah, no, feel free. Absolutely.
The novel uh, begins in the 1990s, and it depicts a young uh, lady who basically has her coming out party, if you will. She decides to attend a high school, early college uh, party thrown by two very entitled, wealthy suburban Michigan young men.
Okay.
And during the party, one of the hosts, a college student, uh, er, I believe he just started law school, if I recall my own novel correctly. But
It is hard to keep
he
track of that.
traps this young woman in the master bathroom of his mansion, his parents' mansion, and he attempts to sexually assault her.
Okay.
She escapes the uh, attempt. She presses charges and discovers that the crime is going to be covered up by the cops, the local cops, and by the boys' um, um, very wealthy parents. She's persuaded to back off, and she basically goes on with her life, um, even though her predator has become a lawyer, then a judge, and then a Court of Appeals judge, and then a United States Court of Appeals judge. She basically ignores most of that. She writes a letter um, in protest of his elevation to the federal bench, and that letter is ignored. So she decides that when she finds out that he's going to be a candidate for the Supreme Court, that's a bridge too far.
Right.
And uh, this particular passage essentially is her discovery that he's about to become a candidate for the Supreme Court.
Okay.
So that's your setup.
Awesome. Um, I love that your books have so much detail and they have so many different layers. So I understand that setup is incredibly important for the section that you're going to read for us tonight.
I
Um,
think it is.
I think it is too. Absolutely.
All right.
So thank you for sharing that with us. And when you are ready, please go
Ready?
ahead and do your reading, and we'll take Q&A after.
All right. Like a terrible addictive habit, here he was again. This time he was a candidate to become a justice on the highest court in the land. His vote was to be the vital swing vote for a divided court. His sense of entitlement, narcissistic attitude, and political ideology were repugnant to her. On top of all of this, he was a criminal. Haley was beside herself. What should I do? What can I do after all these years? Who would believe me? Would I be wasting my time, causing myself unnecessary pain and aggravation? How can such a man be qualified to serve on the United States Supreme Court? Has he done this to anyone else? Honey, are you okay? Joel snapped her out of her thoughts. She didn't even realize he was holding her. Joel, oh my God, how can they even consider this guy? Did they get my letter? Do they know what kind of man he is? What kind of predator he is? How can they do this? She looked into his eyes, pleading for words of comfort, understanding, and perhaps wisdom. Oh, Joel, how many times must I rehash this? I can't keep going back. Who says you have to? Wilkinson certainly has the legal and judicial credentials to be a Supreme Court justice. Maybe we just leave well enough alone and mind our own business. Joel didn't really mean what he said. He was brilliantly leading her to the only choice she had. She needed to expose this jerk for the predator he was. His strategy worked almost immediately. And what happens when a rape victim needs an abortion? What happens when the court looks at issues of government funding for victim programs? What happens to a wide variety of social issues a guy like Wilkinson could care less about? David won't have any chance to beat Goliath for the next 40 years. I understand that, sweetheart. But those are issues of political and legal ideology. Do you oppose him because he's a criminal or because he's an extreme right wing appointee? Both. What's wrong with that? Nothing. If you're going to do something, though, whatever that might be, I want you to do it for the right reasons. Would you go after Wilkinson if he was on your side of the issues? And there it was. Leave it to Joel to wrap this up into a neat little one sentence package. Would I? She paused, staring into outer space again. Joel squeezed her hand. Damn straight I would, Haley growled. He's a criminal. He should be in prison. He should never have been granted a law license, let alone a seat on the circuit or appellate court. United States Supreme Court? Oliver Wilkinson? Joel, that is a bridge too far. So what do you propose to do? Haley was in agony. She wrinkled her nose, tightly closed her eyes, and dropped her head into her hands. I don't have a clue. What do you propose, my knight in shining armor? Joel was developing a germ of an idea. Are you ready to go public with this? Your idea is to go public? What about the kids? How would the kids feel as adults in 20 or 30 years if this guy's still a Supreme Court justice? How would they feel knowing their mother could have done something to prevent it and did nothing? Boy, you don't pull any punches. What happened to my patient, loving, and supportive knight? He's right here, Haley. He's watched this guy occupy an important space in your head for years. He has affected your relationships, career choices, moods, and even how you sleep and dream. Your loving knight in shining armor says it's time to fight back. What do you propose? You remember Zachary Blake, the lawyer? The one with all the large verdicts and the big ego? That's the one. The ego's well deserved because Blake is the best in the city. Okay, what about him? Zach is a powerful guy in Michigan politics. He's a large donor to the Democratic Party in Michigan and nationally. He's well connected and very politically active. He can't be happy with the Wilkinson appointment. So I think we should make an appointment to see him. Tell him the whole story. Let him investigate and expose this guy. No one knows how to play the media better than Zachary Blake. He's the master. If there are legal issues, or if you're called to testify before the bar or the Senate, Zach can provide legal advice and representation. Oh, Joel, what about our careers? This could be a huge media and political spectacle. Press could descend on our lawn. What about the kids, the school, the neighbors? What about our privacy? Haley squinted in anguish and again buried her face in her hands. All good points. Again, we don't have to do this, but I'm tired of seeing this space Oliver Wilkinson continues to occupy in your brain. It's your choice and your choice alone. I won't force you to do anything you don't want to do, but I say go for it. Yes, there will be short term pain, but the long term gain, if you're successful, will be well worth it. I can handle it. I'm sure the kids can too. And I know Zach will help make this as painless as possible. He really is the master. The more important question is, can you handle it? Are you up for this, Haley? Again, Haley Schultz paused, reflecting on what might be a life altering decision. Let's do it, she finally decided with determination. Call Zach. Let's expose this bastard and let the chips fall where they may. That's my girl. I'm on it, sweetheart. Joel and Haley Schultz stood and embraced. Joel hugged the love of his life as if he would never let go. Haley felt so comfortable in his embrace. When they finally separated, they gazed into each other's eyes, perhaps second guessing their decision to move forward. Joel took Haley's hand and led her upstairs to the master bedroom. Their lives were about to change forever, for better or for worse. Ta-da!
Well done. Thank you very, very much. That was awesome. I love your reading style. You put all the drama and all the punch into it. It's so wonderful to hear you do audiobook. It's just I
I
love
should
to hear you read.
I should read my own audio.
You should read your own audiobooks. It's a daunting task, but I think the next book you should do your own because I think it would be a
Lee
really cool treat for
Lee Allen does a great job.
he does, but I think
Uh,
that you could do as well.
all right, there are a lot of people on this chat that are familiar with the Hall of Fame disc jockey Lee Allen. Uh, he
Hmm.
he is the narrator of all of my audiobooks.
Yeah, he does a superb job too.
That's very cool.
Yeah, it is very, very cool. Thank you very much for the reading. That's so awesome. Excuse me. So, if anybody has any questions for Mark, please feel free to pop them into the chat. We're going to just give him an awesome opportunity to answer your questions. Um, Emma says she would like to know, how did Zach play the media? What was his in with the media that made him so good at it?
Well, if we're talking about Zachary Blake pre Supreme Betrayal, I'm happy to talk about it. If we're talking about how he plays the media in the book,
No. I don't
uh,
want you to give that away. Um,
buy the book.
what we want to know is just a little bit of the characterization of Zach's relationship with the media.
Well,
Um,
first of all, um, for those of you who have not read the prior novels, Zach starts out uh, as basically an in the gutter, down and out lawyer in Betrayal of Faith. And Betrayal of Faith, um, boy, I hate to ruin any novel for
Just
any
give us little
new reader,
teasers. Just give
but
us
in
little
it,
teasers.
let's just say that in Betrayal of Faith, uh, he goes from rags to riches. He's a down and out uh, um, part-time lawyer who spends a lot of his time drinking and a lot of his time in strip clubs and getting in trouble. And he's about to lose everything when he gets a phone call from Jennifer Tracy, who is the mother of these two boys who were sexually abused in um, the first novel.
Hmm.
Um, needless to say, he wins the case. He becomes rather famous doing so, and uh, he was very successful prior to his fall from grace. He knew how to play the media in the old days. He was considered the so-called quote king of justice unquote,
Hmm.
and he essentially resurrects his title, going from uh, faith to justice, where he takes on the president of the United States and successfully handles that case. White supremacy in Betrayal in Blue, the third book, a cop on black shooting in the fourth book, Betrayal in Black, uh, a high school shooting in the fifth book, Betrayal High. So he's taken on high profile cases. He's played the media all the way through, and that's why he's acknowledged to be someone who is not only um, very politically connected, because he's now used his newfound fame to donate to democratic causes, but he is also a whiz at playing the media. If,
Sure.
if he calls a press conference, everybody shows up.
And because he has established his reputation as a guy who fights hard and wins,
That is correct.
everybody wants to be on his team. So the media does kind of follow him and hang on his career because they know there's going to be a story.
And he's a story in and of himself.
Absolutely. So something that I wanted to ask you over our past couple of book festivals, but time didn't allow us to really talk about it. As a practicing attorney, you're writing these books about really high profile, high tension topics. When you write these segments, as an attorney, are you constantly being aware of that slander, libel, don't push it too far thing? Do you have like rules of engagement as an author that you have to follow? I know that there are a lot of authors out there who have this question because they always ask me, especially in memoir writing, what can I include? Whose names can I include? Those kinds of things. So you're taking these high profile cases. How do you make sure that you stay within the law so you don't get yourself sued, essentially?
Well, these books are fictional.
Yeah,
They're um, the acknowledgments and the forward indicates that they're fictional.
sure.
There are no names in the novel um, that, of especially of the bad guys um, who are real people. Now, there are some people on this chat um, who know who the names of my characters
Right.
are. Um, I don't think it would be a surprise to anybody that I use names of people who I know and love and honor them with a name in the book.
Sure.
Um, Diana and I have discussed in the past that we both have sons named Zachary.
Hmm.
So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that the reason that my hero is Zachary Blake is to honor my own son. Um, Zachary Blake is nothing like my son.
Right.
My son's a good guy, but he's not a lawyer. Uh, he's not a television personality. He's charming, and Zach Blake is charming, and there are characteristics of characteristics
Good word.
characteristics of Zach Blake that are like Zach Bello.
Hmm.
There are characteristics of Mark Bello that are like Zach Bello. Zach Blake is a compilation of a lot of lawyers uh, who I've met over a 45-year career, admire. Um, I love the tenaciousness, the quest for justice, the absolute unbridled um, urgency that he puts into every case he handles. Um, I can't say that I ever practiced like that, to be honest. I didn't handle the type of high profile cases that he handles, other than the actual
The one that got
case
you
against the
started.
Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Um, that was newsworthy. I was in the news. Uh, I can't say that, I was a 32-year-old punk. Um, uh, the betrayal of faith uh, is basically an expression of how the um, case felt.
Hmm.
He felt like there was some powerful force behind the defendant in that case, orchestrating things,
Yeah,
get,
and I think
get
that
people
that's a
disappear and so on and so forth.
and I
And
think that that force is a driving theme throughout all of your books. That that force of justice above all else, and this is the quest, right? And I think that that more than the specifics of a case or more than the people involved, I think is what makes your book so interesting, is that they have this continuing theme throughout them. And I think
David versus Goliath,
absolutely.
truth to power.
Yes.
That's essentially um, where I'm at.
Right. So Gary and Emma just both asked similar questions. Gary says, do people believe that they see themselves or others in your work? And Emma kind of took that a step further and said, could Kavanaugh see himself in your book? So, what do you think about people who read these, who might be similar characters to those in your books? Do you think that they identify with these characters?
Well, honestly, I don't think they've read my books,
Okay.
but but Betrayal of Justice was about a bigoted, evil, um, very wealthy non-politician who becomes president of the United States in 2016. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out who the um,
Who you were emulating in that? Yeah.
now, having said that, uh, I don't think President Ronald John is uh, Donald Trump. Um, and what I tell people who accuse me of that is I wrote the book during the election. I
Hmm.
didn't write the book after the election.
Right.
So I wrote about this evil guy who wanted to put a wall on both borders, who wanted to deport all Muslims, who wanted to keep Mexicans out of the country because they were bringing in crime and so on and so forth. And lo and behold, Donald Trump came into office and imitated the president in my
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. You could
So
say that
when
he got the idea from you.
now that's not quite true. I mean, I got the idea from him, but he could
Uh-huh.
have been a different guy. He
Sure.
could have been elected president and chosen to be somebody different. So when people accuse me of doing a hit job on Donald Trump, my response is he imitated my guy, not the other way around.
That's right. You were there first.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Alan asks a curious question: is Kavanaugh in the acknowledgments for your book?
No, no. And by the way, I'm glad you mentioned that because that was part two of my answer to Emma and who was the other person? Um,
Gary.
Emma and Dave's question. Um, Kavanaugh, the Kavanaugh hearings were the inspiration for the novel.
Mm-hmm.
Kavanaugh is not Oliver Wilkinson. Oliver Wilkinson is a terrible, terrible, evil son of a gun.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I would use the other word, but this is a family-friendly show because
And I
I
appreciate
know how you feel about something.
it. I do.
Um, um, I have written, as you said, 6 books. There are multiple nasty, evil people, including white supremacists, including a greedy gun manufacturer, including a mass shooter. It, there are some bad characters in my books.
Yep.
Um, Oliver Wilkinson is the most evil man I have ever written about, even more evil than Ronald John, the nasty president I wrote about in 2016. So, uh, in fairness to Brett Kavanaugh, I didn't like um, his testimony. I didn't like his behavior. I didn't like his demeanor. I didn't like his judicial temperament. Um, and I saw no motive for um, Christine Ford to lie.
Mm-hmm.
But we have no idea, other than what we saw, what kind
Right.
of person he is.
Right. Yeah,
I make
we
it
don't know what
very,
happens behind the scenes, behind closed
and
doors.
I make it very clear in this book that this guy is the worst piece of junk in American history.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody can read my book, Supreme Betrayal, and come out liking Oliver Wilkinson.
That's a good thing. We have to have villains that we love to hate. That I
He
think
is
that's important.
he is
um,
evil personified. He's the most evil character I've created.
so Mark asks, what was your favorite book to write and why?
Wow.
That's a good question.
Favorite book to write.
Yep.
I really can't answer that. I can tell you that I liked writing Betrayal of Justice a lot because I was so frustrated by what was going on at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Betrayal of Faith obviously was my maiden novel, and I had waited almost 30 years to write it. It was a huge, huge bucket list item for me. I started it, by the way, back in the late 1990s, right at the turn of the century, and I, um, put it down and picked it up again, and put it down and picked it up again, and again, I wasn't somebody that, had novelist in my future. It was just a bucket list thing for me. I wanted to tell the story because I thought it was an important story to tell. Spotlight came out, the movie, the Academy Award winning movie that told about the Boston um, uh, incidents.
Mm-hmm.
That helped get me going a little bit. But nobody knew about this back in the 70s and 80s. They did this over and over and over again in almost absolute privacy. They would
Right.
have people sign confidentiality agreements. They would seal
Yeah.
court documents.
Yeah. It took
Uh,
decades for
it
this
was
stuff to
terrible.
break. Yeah.
And I made it a point, not only in writing the novel, but in handling the case. I We did not seal our file. We did not sign a confidentiality agreement. We did not accept money for silence. We made sure that this case followed this guy wherever he went from that point on until he was defrocked.
Excellent.
He's now being indicted by the Michigan Attorney General at long last, 40 some odd years later, and people are coming out of the woodwork and saying they were victims of his. So I like to think I was a part of that.
Absolutely. Uh,
Small part, but a part.
we get two really good questions, but I'm going to take them out of order, just because this is so interesting to me. Jennifer, your daughter,
Okay.
says, as someone who knows you personally, I know the issues covered in your books are ones that you care deeply about. Do you feel writing about social injustice is like a form of therapy? And do you write about these issues to bring more awareness to them, such as
Yes and yes.
social and
Yes and
political
yes.
concerns?
Yes and yes. That's a softball question, Jenny. Uh,
I don't
um,
think so. I think it's a really
I'm
insightful
kidding. I'm
question.
kidding.
I mean,
I'm kidding. But she knows the answer.
well, but
Um,
she's asking it for people who don't know.
no, no,
So,
no. I,
good job, Jenny.
she's gonna be mad at me.
Keep
Um,
going, Jenny.
um, the answer is yes and yes. Uh, these issues are very, very important to me. The big problem is that uh, corporate interests and political interests are eroding our Seventh Amendment rights. Um, a lot of people don't know that there's even a Seventh Amendment um, in the Constitution.
Well, there has to
What
be
is
because
what
there's
is
a
the
fifth
Seventh
one and
Amendment?
an eighth one, right?
What is the Seventh Amendment? The answer is it says that anybody can sue anybody for civil damages for an amount that exceeds $25. That you cannot infringe on a person's right to pursue civil damages. That's the
Okay.
Seventh Amendment.
Okay.
The legislature has passed many statutes that restrict people's rights to the court. If you want to sue somebody for malpractice these days, you have to jump through 1,000 hoops, and your rights to recovery are restricted and capped at certain levels. You can't collect unlimited damages in malpractice cases. Same is true in product liability cases. Betrayal High, the school shooting case,
Mm-hmm.
also includes as a side issue gun lobbies and gun control and the National Rifle Association. And the big the big dilemma that I pose in that book is why is the Second Amendment so important to constitutional Republicans, but the Seventh Amendment is so unimportant to the same people?
It's a
There's a
good question.
statute. There's a statute in Betrayal High, the Lawful Arms and Commerce Act, I think it's called, the Lawful Commerce and Arms Act. Read the book. Um, but it basically restricts a person's right to sue a gun manufacturer when a gun is used to commit a crime. Now, I certainly recognize as a citizen that there's a Second Amendment and that if a gun is used properly by someone, it might kill somebody. But I also have a question about whether or not anybody should so easily be able to acquire a gun. Um, and I think that contrary to what that act allows people to do, the Second Amendment does not prevent sensible gun control and preventing people who shouldn't have guns from getting them. The Second Amendment doesn't say the things that the gun lobby seems to suggest that it says. Now, that doesn't mean I'm anti Second Amendment. I'm not a hypocrite. Um, they are. Uh, if there's a Seventh Amendment that I fully support, and there's a Second Amendment that they fully support, I think the two can live in harmony together. But I don't think the Second Amendment stands for you can buy any gun you want, anytime you want, without any background checks or any safety um, protocol. And that seems to be what the Second Amendment folks say.
And that
That-
was a
that-
really important issue that you made clear in Betrayal High. So Anybody who finds that particular topic of interest or wants to know more about that controversy, I highly recommend that you go read Betrayal High. It will certainly stimulate your imagination on that discussion.
It's an
And then,
interesting discussion of those two competing uh,
absolutely,
issues.
the other, since we're on a political tangent right now, the other question that Gary asked was, in your opinion, can they have a nomination process now that both sides don't reflexively run to their political corners?
No, the emphasis on the word now. There was a time, um, and by the way, I'm speaking specifically of the Supreme Court.
Right,
As you can, as you we all know, our president is now Joe Biden, and we just went through a rather lengthy nominating process for all of his cabinet members. All of them were approved in a bipartisan fashion, except uh, um, one candidate whose name he withdrew because she became controversial. Um, I'm not saying that they happily voted to confirm people, and I'm certainly not saying there's harmony in Washington
right,
between Republicans and Democrats over nominations. But the Supreme Court has a particular is a particular political football,
sure,
uh, and and the two parties have become very polarized over the Supreme Court, especially on the issue of guns and abortion. And I don't think there will ever be an easy confirmation process until uh, these polarized um, interests, special interests, go away.
right. I have an interesting question about your process. So, all of these topics that you write on are really serious hot buttons for a lot of people, for a lot of different segments of the country. These are some serious topics. Um, so, my question about your process is, how much news research do you do before you sit down to write a novel, or through the process of writing the novel? How much do you sit in front of the different news outlets and pay attention to what they're reporting? How much legal research do you do into a particular topic before you take it to the novel page?
What's your definition of how much? The answer is a lot.
Well, I
Uh,
mean, I guess my question is, I'm in the middle of writing a political thriller right now, and I'm finding myself going down rabbit hole after rabbit hole of, I spent 3 hours on Saturday just trying to figure out what the vice president is allowed to do as far as running for president in the next term.
Welcome to
What's
my
allowed,
world.
what's not allowed, how long that process takes, what the time period is, how the money is involved. So I went through those rabbit holes for 3 hours. So I'm wondering, how much time does research consume before you sit down and write, because you're producing a new book on the average of one a year, and I find that remarkable. Been working sporadically, to be true, but I've been working on my political thriller now for 3 years, and I'm not done yet, and I still find these rabbit holes to get lost in. So I'm wondering how you relegate the research with the writing process.
I I do a lot of research. Um, you kind of divided it up. You asked. I don't know if you remember asking it this way, but this is how I heard it. You asked me how much research I do before I sit down and write a book,
Mm-hmm.
and then you asked in the same maybe 2 seconds later, and how much research do you do while you're writing the book?
Right.
And the answer is a substantial amount of research at both levels.
Okay.
Um, I decide to write a book, and and sometimes I discard it because the research just is either too confusing or too convoluted. I can't pull a book out of it.
Mm-hmm.
um, I I put some novels on the shelf, but I do a lot of research on the various topics that I write. I pick a particular incident. As I indicated, um, Supreme Betrayal is about the Kavanaugh hearings.
Right.
Betrayal in Black, the uh, police shooting case, is based on a particular police shooting, and then I researched a bunch of police shootings on top of that and added um, additional information that
So
are that
you draw a little bit from multiple research sources.
yeah, I do,
Okay.
I the book that's going to follow Supreme Betrayal I just finished. It's in the editing stage, and it's called Betrayal at the Border,
Hmm.
and it's about the immigration crisis from the point of view of a um, South American immigrant who escaped tyranny in South America, and a Muslim citizen who goes home to Syria, Kobani, to see her mother and introduce her mother to her granddaughter,
Hmm.
and finds herself kidnapped by ISIS. So
Okay.
it goes back and forth between the two sets of immigrants, and basically tells the story of anti-immigrant bias in this country,
That's
which
going to be a great story. I can't wait to read that one.
well, all of us, especially in my family, are children of immigrants, and
Oh,
I just find it strange that now that we're here, now that we're citizens, others can't follow in our footsteps and piggyback on on our successes. And you know, I certainly recognize the need for border security, but I also think that um, we need to be a compassionate, welcoming country. I can't quote you the words on the Statue of Liberty. Maybe you can because you're smarter than me.
I
But
am not.
but bring us your tired, your poor, your
Huddled masses yearning to breathe
yearning to be
free.
free.
Yeah,
I believe I think the country should embrace that, and that's what betrayal
that's what the
at the
next book
border
is.
is about.
That's super exciting. And you answered Mark's next question. So,
That took a
um,
lot of research, that book, and so did Supreme Betrayal, because I I basically uh, found every transcript of every uh, uh, a lot of reporting,
mm-hmm,
transcripts of hearings, transcripts of testimony in front of the Judiciary Committee, um, and even private. Um, if you know where to go, you can find private transcripts
sure.
of events that aren't even made public. So I did a lot of research for Supreme Betrayal.
So
Um,
one last question, and then we're going to do the spinning wheel of happiness and give some stuff away.
okay.
Real quick, in hindsight, do you think that you could have been an author and a full-time practicing attorney at the same time, or did this author thing have to wait until retirement, given the amount of time and research and effort it takes to write a book?
Well, there's a big problem. It, this is not the question you asked, but I'm going to answer it this way anyway.
Okay, go ahead.
The answer to the question you asked is there's no way.
Mm-hmm.
I was much too busy practicing law to write novels in my spare time. I also, uh, from a character standpoint, I don't think I was as angry or as socially conscious as I am now.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, I was too focused on practicing law. Um, and don't get me wrong, I was a zealous advocate for my clients, uh, but it wasn't this type of big issue um, huge impact
It sounds like
litigation
the
like
law
this is.
was right. When you were practicing law, it was more of a singular focus, case to case, and now it at
And
least in
and,
our
and they were small, and they
conversation.
were smaller cases.
Yeah, and in the conversations we've had previously, it I feel like now you have the opportunity to really set back and take a broader horizontal view of this stuff that maybe you didn't have the time or the energy to do when you were practicing.
Well, now to answer the question you didn't ask,
Yeah.
um, I probably enjoy writing better than I enjoyed practicing law.
Well, that's good to hear. That means you're going to keep doing it.
The problem is that I made a living practicing law. I'm
Yeah.
not making a living writing novels, and I don't think I could have supported my family on the income I'm making from novels. So everybody who's in the chat, uh, go buy all these cheap books that I'm marketing. There's a lot of specials going on right now that I
Yep.
promised
I
Diana I
was
would talk about.
That's right. And I want you to
Um,
talk about those. So those of you who want to see Mark give really great Hanukkah presents to his grandchildren, go buy his books. Cuz that's where all the money's going to go anyway.
well,
So Mark, tell us about the specials you've got going right now, and then we're
well,
going to do the spinning wheel of happiness, and then I'm going to go catch up on
today
Hemingway.
today Betrayal of Faith is on a promotion called Free Booksy,
Mhm.
and the book is actually free on Amazon. If you go to Amazon right now, you can download Betrayal of Faith for free.
Excellent.
Um, Free Booksy has a sister site called Bargain Booksy, and Betrayal of Justice, the second book, is on sale for 99 cents
Mhm.
on Bargain Booksy, but you can go to Amazon and buy it for 99 cents. Supreme Betrayal, because it was a book about empowering women and women speaking truth to power. And by the way, we didn't even cover this issue, and I know you want to get going, but uh, I I tend to write strong female characters,
Mhm.
um, and uh, women are a huge part of my books. They are powerful, strong, uh, take down the evil man type women. Um, and for Women's History Month, I had a promotion all month long in the month of March uh, that Supreme on pre order was 99 cents.
Mhm.
Because we were doing this, I kept the price at 99 cents so that everybody on the chat could order the book for a buck. That goes away tomorrow, as do the other two promotions. So if you want to get three of my books for a buck 98, what a deal!
What a deal. Oh my
You can
gosh.
actually do that.
That's awesome.
Or as we say in the Jewish faith, such a deal.
Such a deal.
So
All
there you
right,
are.
awesome. We're going to give away some books, and then I'm going to let everybody go for tonight. And again, don't forget um, the uh, the books are available at markmbello.com. They're also on book available on Amazon.com in both print and ebook. So look for them. The series is a great series. Yes, sir.
What, one more little interruption.
Yeah.
Also on my website is my novella, which
Yes.
is the story of Zachary bar mitzvah
Yes.
and his grandfather's promise to tell him the story of his escape from Auschwitz. That book, if you subscribe to my newsletter, is available as a free download as well. So you can get three and a
Holy
half
moly.
books
There's
for a
so
dollar
much
ninety eight.
going on. And I just got to put this plug in for those of you who are looking forward to what might be coming next. Aside from Mark's next Zachary Blake legal thriller, we're also helping Mark produce a cookbook based on Jewish traditional family recipes as told by Zachary Blake. So that's going to be a fun project. We're in the middle of collaborating on that. I'm helping Mark edit it and lay it out right now. It's super fun. We're going to have a good time with that. So hopefully that'll be out before June. So it'll be available for our June festival.
Now you're the first
Um,
person with eyes on that. Did you enjoy it?
I'm having a blast. I'm really
All right.
enjoying it. Yeah, it's awesome.
All right.
Okay, let's give away some books. So I am going to share my screen for everybody right now. Um, Mark, I need to tell you if you can see the spinning wheel of happiness.
I can see it.
Awesome. Okay, here we go. The first thing we're going to give away is an audiobook version of Betrayal in Faith. Here we go.
Fix.
Awesome.
Fix. He can't have.
Larry.
He can't have it.
Well, he can donate it to somebody he loves.
All right. All right.
All right. So the next book that we are going to give away is another audiobook copy of Betrayal in Faith. Here we go.
It's betrayal of faith.
Yes, Betrayal of
Diana.
Faith. Here we go. Yay, Michelle. Michelle Vandermeulen is an awesome friend to indie authors. She comes to our book festivals every year. She supports indie authors like crazy. So I am super happy, Michelle, that you got that copy of Betrayal of Faith in audiobook. That's going to be fun. And then the final book we're giving away today is a paperback edition of Supreme Betrayal, signed by Mark Bello, the author himself. Ready? Here we go. Congratulations, Gary Floyd. You won. Yay! We're so happy. All right. So here we go. Let me stop sharing this. Okay. So again, you guys won books. If you're curious about how you can get your books, I'm going to show you right now, just to remind you. And then here, for those of you who won books today, contact Mark Bello at his website, markmbello.com. There's a contact page on his website. In the subject for your email to Mark through his contact page, put book launch winner, and he will send you instructions on how to get your book. Gary, make sure that you tell him that you won the print book so that he can sign it and send it to you, and we will get those books out to you. For those of you who didn't win tonight, I hope you had a good time anyway. And again, all the books are on special promotions, or at least three and a half of the books are on special promotions until midnight tonight. So make sure that you jump on Amazon and get them.
Won.
Absolutely, everybody won. Make sure you jump on Amazon and download your ebook copies. Grab your printed editions, and if you want signed copies, again, go to Mark's website, markmbello.com, and he will arrange to get you signed copies.
Hey, Diana.
Yes, sir.
I know you want to go, but I just saw a question I'd like to answer if you don't mind.
Absolutely, go right ahead.
Sorry asked me, have I ever worried about my politics limiting my sales in the U.S.? My point of view,
Good question.
the point of view which I agree with, is regarded as leftist, communist, and anti-American by half the population. I know Sari very well. I don't agree with her. I don't think that my point of view is leftist or communist. I don't think it's anti-American, and I don't think people, even on the right, think that. But they do disagree vehemently. And to answer her question, I basically made a decision a long time ago that I have to write true to myself. And if I alienate half the population, there's plenty of people in the other half that can support my novels. I will say that some of the bad reviews that I have gotten, and I haven't gotten very many, have been politically motivated rather than book quality motivated.
Mhm.
So there is some backlash for uh, writing as I do. But again, I believe strongly that I have to be me, and I'm going to cater to people on the right who at least are willing to um, entertain an opposite point of view, or B, people who are like-minded and are looking for a good story about truth, justice, and the American way.
Absolutely. Well, and you know the old maxim, any attention is good attention. So
True.
anybody who reads the book, it's a good idea. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Mark, I so appreciate your time. This was great conversation. This extended conversation is something we don't get to do during the book festival, so I'm really pleased that you chose me to help host your book launch. I'm super excited for your new book coming out,
Thank you.
and thank you again for choosing us to help
I,
support you.
I, I enjoyed it. Thank everybody for coming, and thank you for doing this. I appreciate it.
Sure. And everybody, look for the link tomorrow for the replay on YouTube. It'll be on our Pages Promotions Facebook page, our website, and it'll be on Mark's website as well.
Share it, share it, share it.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Have a lovely evening and keep reading indie.
Bye,
Bye
guys.
bye.